Welcome to the third and final video of my MCAT review guide on how to structure MCAT studying. And in this video, we're going to talk about what's probably the most important facet of MCAT studying, which is the review process. So, through your full lengths that you're doing once a week, according to my previous video, your CARS passages that you're doing almost, 3 times a week, your practice questions and passages that you're doing according to your own needs. The one thing is true, and that's that you're going to have a ton of multiple choice questions that need to be reviewed. So with multiple choice questions, sometimes they all bleed together and you just look, and the problem is there's going to be thousands of these multiple choice questions. And ideally, you want a system that is going to focus your attention on the problems that actually give you value. So I'm going to talk about what I like to call the flagging approach. I don't know if this is available online somewhere else. It's something that I kind of, to my mind, came up with, but maybe someone came up with it first. The idea with this flagging approach takes into this idea that when you're doing online material, so online full lengths or any online questions, you typically have the ability to flag questions. And when you flagged a question, or maybe the flag looks like this. That looks better to me. When you flag a question, on a test, that typically means, hey, I'm going to come back to this because I'm not sure about the answer. But my advice is that we're going to actually use this flag to make review efficient. So here's the idea. With the flagging approach, you are only flagging, or actually, I shouldn't say only because you're going to be flagging a lot. You're going to flag any question that you are not 100% confident about. So if you're guessing the question, you flag it. If you're 90% sure your answer is right, but there's another answer that seems to be somewhat, maybe it's correct, flag it. If you're 99% sure that it's right, but there's some doubt, flag it. The only thing that you don't flag is something that you're 100% confident about. So, why is this worth doing? Imagine you've done a full length. You have, what is that, 200 something questions to review. Let's look at the different cases. The first is that you flagged it. So, case one, you flagged the question and you got it correct. Well, I guess that's, you can look at that. That might be useful because you weren't sure and you got it right. So maybe, look at it. If it was a case where you were 99% sure and you're right, there's not much else to do there, right? But if you got it right and it was a total fluke, maybe it's worth looking and making a note of that, right? That maybe you got that content wrong. If it's really something that you really didn't understand, you can make a note of the topic. Like, oh, I struggled on this OChem topic, right? You don't have to go too specific. OChem, maybe SN2 reactions was tough. Cool. Now, the second case is you flagged it. I can't spell today. You flagged it, and you got it wrong. This is also kind of useful. There's nothing too crazy here. You got it wrong. There's some sort of content gap here, probably. You weren't sure about it, and you got it wrong. I mean, look at it, review it. It's worth value, right? Now here comes where the actual value comes in from this method. So, third is you didn't flag, which again, based on this strategy, means that you're 100% confident that your answer was right. And you got it right. This is absolutely useless. It's not even worth reading. Just skip over these. Right? And why this is useful, especially as you get further and further along and you've done more and more practice, you're going to get less answers wrong. You're going to be more confident more of the time. So by skipping over these, let's say that 40 or 50% of your answers are confidently correct. Great, right? Don't review them and you've cut your review time in half. Then the fourth case, and this is arguably the most important one. This is probably, this is the most important situation. You didn't flag the question. So you were 100% confident, but you got it wrong. This is the most useful thing in the world. The more times this happens to you early, the better. Because what this tells you is that you had some sort of confident misunderstanding. Right? So you are very confident in this idea, and you actually misunderstood the material fundamentally underneath. Let's say this topic was something about boiling points of chemicals, because I like OChem. If you are wrong about that, fundamentally, you'll be wrong about every other boiling question like it. Those might actually show up on your MCAT. So if you have some sort of fundamental misunderstanding that you're confident about, that requires you need to relearn the material. Right? You need to make sure that you don't make that confident misunderstanding again in the future. So these are always worth reviewing. And so effectively, by flagging your questions that you're not 100% confident about, right, you're able to skip over these useless situations, really focus in on the valuable problems, right, the valuable review problems, and with these other cases, just note some content you might need to review. With that, that applies to even on paper, you can just put a star beside questions instead of flagging, or online, you can just use the flag button. The only other thing I'd say, and you probably saw from my previous videos, is review the day after. Right? This to me is really important, especially for cars. So when you're doing a full length, after doing a 7-hour test, you're not going to be at the top of your energy levels, so review is going to suck. It won't be efficient. But for cars especially, I'll talk about that. Right? Cars is really, it can be annoying sometimes. It can be challenging. And you've just done a cars passage. You already have your idea. But here's why I like to review the day after. Say you've done a cars passage and you have some sort of list of questions. And you put, A, B, C, D, D, B, A, whatever. And you can go through right after and just mark them right or wrong and make a note and, move on. But imagine then instead you sleep on it. And the next day, you reread the prompt. You don't have to reread the whole thing like as if it was a test, right? You don't need to be so fine with it, but give it a skim. Remind yourself what it was about, and then go back to the questions you put and look at question 1. Right? You put A. So just quickly look at that and remind yourself, why did I pick A? Right? Convince yourself, justify what you did yesterday after a night's sleep. You might change your mind, right? You might not. Most of the time you won't, but give yourself that justification and then reveal the answer. And it actually turned out it was C. And the reason was, and depending on your material, it might give you a reason. And so what you've done now is you've kind of like cemented your previous idea into your head of, okay, here's I'm more awake. I didn't just redo this. I didn't just write this. Here's why I picked it. And actually, that wasn't correct. Here's the reason why I should have picked C. To me, this is a more effective way to review cars, right? It actually gives much more value than just going over the answers and writing, correct, wrong, wrong, correct. These are annoying, right? And then just doing more cars. This review process the day later is just as valuable as doing the cars itself. Generally, I like to do that for the FLs and cars. So with that in mind, using this flagging method that I bring up here and doing a review, really, it all comes back to the previous video where I brought up the 3-month plan. If you do your content review, you're consistent and you hold yourself accountable to doing your cars work, your full-length work, and filling in your extra time with just cementing your weaknesses and doing practice problems on things like UWorld, you'll do excellent. Right? That is what a 515 score plus is made of. So with that in mind, I hope you found this video series helpful. Good luck with the MCAT, and if you ever have any OChem problems, feel free to check out the other videos on my channel, as I do have a bunch of OChem content specifically. All right, best of luck.